This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. In our typically chilly studio, Christine Leahy is joining us today.
Look at that fancy sweater you have. It's got lines on the inside.
A little cold today.
That's great.
So we have a great show planned. I cannot wait for our show today. And I have noticed something. I don't know, Christine, when you decided this. I decided as a little kid I wanted to be in the media, about 8 years old. And about 8 years old, I knew what I wanted to do. And I was lucky. Like a lot of people, they're still 30, 40 years old. They're not quite sure what they wanted to do. And a lot of it's just luck. I figured out very early what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on TV, local news. There wasn't sports radio. I wanted to write for a newspaper. I wanted to cover sports, and I wanted to talk about sports. And so I have been part of the media. In my world, I believe I've been part of the media since I was 8. Like when I was 8 years old, I was doing play-by-play into a comb and taping it in my bedroom, and I'd go to Seattle Mariner games. So I've been about the media. I've been writing sports, talking about sports, stringing sports on the air for like a long time, right? And it was different. When I first started, like newspapers were a big deal. Like those were the people that told the truth. And TV people could be kind of clownish in characters, but like the newspaper, you always trusted. Like the newspaper guys, they had standards and they were amazing. And then as I got older and older and older, I see a lot of newspaper guys going to radio and television because they can make a lot more money, and they kind of got clownish. And I don't really buy what they're saying. They kind of dilute it, and the line gets blurry. Journalist, opinion guy, whatever. Now we're to a point now where I don't trust the newspapers. So it went from the newspapers I trusted to a lot of the newspaper people I didn't trust. Now I trust them less than anybody because they are so in the tank on one side or the other, especially in politics. I don't even trust them. I mean, I literally wake up and I look at the media now and I have distrust for it. Because I think they over-dramatize everything. And it's just ridiculous. Politically, it's ridiculous. But I see it all the time. Y2K. The Rio Games, the sports media. Oh, the Rio Games are going to be a catastrophe. Oh, the Rio Games going to be crime and there's pollution. The only problem, Ryan Lochte, a swimmer, got drunk. That was the biggest disaster at the Rio Games. The bird flu was going to end the world. Donald Trump's president, stock market will crash. That's funny, it's up. And I just talked to my broker yesterday. They think it's going to go up for another 9 months. Okay, so here is the latest where I don't think the media, I think they have an agenda and they're not telling you the truth on these Thursday night games. So tomorrow the Raiders play the Chiefs. Oh, these Thursday night games are bad. These games are bad. They are terrible games. Oh, the players are in great danger. Oh, terrible, terrible games. The NFL, by the way, heard a story last week on a website and said, no, we're going to keep playing these Thursday night games. We're going to keep playing them. Here's the truth about these Thursday night games. They're not bad. By the way, don't we love Thanksgiving games every year? All 3 of those games on Thursday? We never complained about those. Now, one of the reasons we didn't complain about those because we were eating delicious food and taking 2-hour naps. That tryptophan thing. But we love Thursday games. We never worried about the player safety then, did we? Everybody tells you they care about the player safety. You've never once in your life bet in a football game concerned about the future of a guy's family. You've never once put a guy in your fantasy team caring about his health. Stop it. You don't care about the player's health. You want to win games, bet games, watch games, have your team win and feel better about yourself. You don't care about their families. That's a separate issue. They care about their families, and that's fine, and their health, that's fine. But you don't care about the NFL insurance issues. That's baloney. Nobody cares about that except players, and players should care about it. So let's just talk about the football on Thursday that's so terrible. Because that now is the media story. Raiders, Chiefs will be a terrible football game. Well, once again, the lazy media actually doesn't do any homework on this. Here's what's interesting about the Thursday games. They're no worse than the Sunday games. If I told you what's a bad football game, you would say, inefficient quarterback play and full of penalties. Nobody wants to watch a penalty choke football game and bad quarterback play. Let's compare Thursday night games to Sunday night games. Thursday night football games have a higher completion percentage. More passes are completed. There is a higher passer rating on Thursday night. and there's significantly fewer penalties. Well, what do you know? What do you know? And the Thursday night games are always rivalry games, almost always, because the league wants to make the trips, the flights closer. So teams don't need to prepare. There's a reason the Jets seemingly always play the Patriots close, even though the Patriots are great and the Jets are a grease fire, because they play them twice a year. They know their personnel. There's a reason why a Cincinnati-Cleveland game this weekend, though Cincinnati's got much better players, Vegas has it as like a 5-point spread, because Cleveland knows Cincinnati's players and coaches and schemes and habits. So you get these rivalry games. You don't always on Sunday. The games are closer. There's fewer penalties, and the passer rating and completion percentage is higher. Well, the safety of the players. The NFL doesn't even allow pads much anymore. So you just have less pads during the practice. They don't ask teams to do it 2 and 3 and 4 times. They're asking everybody to do it one time. And I went to the NFL Sunday games, which are so great because the Thursday games are so bad. By the way, 5 of the Thursday games have been decided by one possession. Of the 12, 5 of the 12, 40%, one possession. That's better than the league average. But 3 weeks ago, I watched Pittsburgh and Cleveland play, and the Giants and the Bears play, and Miami and the Rams play, and New England and San Francisco play. Games were unwatchable. And I watched virtually every NFL game, at least parts of it. 2 weeks ago, I watched Atlanta, Arizona. Falcons didn't show up. The Giants, Cleveland, unwatchable. New Orleans, Rams, embarrassing. Tampa, Seattle was 14-5. And then I watched the Packers play the Eagles on Monday night. Philadelphia was a mess. Last weekend, I watched Baltimore at Miami. Did Miami practice? I watched Seattle at Carolina. Did Carolina practice? I watched Indianapolis at the Jets this past Monday. Did the Jets even practice? This is the classic example because the game is sitting by itself. We are, in the media, overly criticizing. It's the same reason when you get on a flight and there's an Adam Sandler movie on a flight, and they're all bad. But on a flight, your kid crying behind you, guy smells next to you, you're sitting on a flight, you're bored out of your mind, 33,000 feet, 3-hour flight, you put on an Adam Sandler movie, and you're like, oh, that's kind of entertaining. But if you paid $20 to go watch a Sandler movie, and you paid for parking, and you drove across town, and you watched an Adam Sandler movie, you're like, this is garbage. It's the perception. It's why movies, we are much more tolerant of a movie on a flight. You wouldn't pay to watch that movie on a flight. You wouldn't drop $20 to watch a movie on that flight. If you watch that movie on a flight, you're almost always like, that wasn't terrible. Oh, what'd you watch? Oh, yeah, I watched an Adam Sandler movie. Oh, I feel bad for you. No, it wasn't that bad. But you never pay to go to the theater. We are overly criticizing Y2K, Rio Olympics, over-dramatizing. This Thursday game is going to be a real good football game. And it's going to have playoff implications. And you're going to get 2 really good quarterbacks. And I think Derek Carr, the greatest young quarterback in the league. And everybody's complaining and wants to get rid of Thursday night football. I'm a consumer. I wake up tomorrow morning knowing my Thursday night, I got to sit home, have a Corona, make some home nachos, and watch an NFL football game with playoff implications and the best young star in the game, Derek Carr. It's amazing. I mean, it's like, I don't know if it's clickbait. I don't know what it is. These Thursday night games are close. They're rivalry games. The passing is better. The completion is better. The penalties are less, and they're more rivalry games. And if you watch Sunday games like I do, about a third of them are garbage every week. Unwatchable. I mean, you saw the games this week. There were 4 teams that didn't look like they practiced. Carolina, Miami, the Jets, Chicago, San Francisco. Did they practice? Those games were awful. This won't be awful. It'll be a good football game.
What's a home nacho?
Oh, the best. Now, when home nachos are kind of sloppy,
I've never heard of this thing.
You never do? You never make nachos at home?
Well, yeah, but I don't name them a home nacho.
Well, I call them home nachos. Road nachos and home nachos. Home nachos are nachos, a lot of cheese, sauce, cut up a little pepper, maybe, they're not as good as like a restaurant nacho. They're a home nacho. Microwave them, sizzling.
They're not lazy nachos. They're not just chips and cheese in the microwave.
No.
They're
not
real nachos.
No, they're home nachos. Road nachos are better than home nachos.
Okay.
Road nachos, a restaurant. They've got peppered chicken, and they got multiple slices of peppers, and it's a home nacho. You've never made a home nacho?
I've made nachos at home, but I never named them a home nacho.
Okay.
Or a road nacho.
Yeah, they're that's what they
Maybe
are.
I'll have some tonight in honor of you.
Home nachos.
No, a road nacho.
You're going to the NBA game tonight.
The Warriors game, against the
I'm thinking about
Clippers.
going. I'm not sure yet.
What's going to make your decision?
I don't know. I just may want to go
It's a
home.
little past your bedtime, isn't it?
It is. I'll get home at like 9:40. I'll get home at 10:45.
That's pretty late.
That's late for me. My cat wakes me up at 5 in the morning every morning.
I heard on your head.
On my head.
Morning.
Wake up, cats in the head purring. So I'm up at 5 regardless of whether I want to be.
Right.
All right. So coming up next, we got a great show today. Coming up next, Jerry Jones said something about Tony Romo yesterday. And I love Tony Romo. I'm a fan of Tony Romo. I'm a big Tony Romo guy. But Jerry's got to pump the brakes on this. Jerry has got to pump the brakes on what he said yesterday about Tony Romo. By the way, do you have that partying story in Herdline News?
The partying story?
You haven't heard the big story about Dak and Zeke partying last?
Are you going to tease it or are you going to take it? Because
No,
do have it.
You do have it.
Like you can just
Okay.
No more.
Willie Taggart hired as Oregon's head coach. Solid hire. He's not going to get it to Chip Kelly's level. Coached at Stanford. Good recruiter. Been a head coach twice. Solid record. But remember, Oregon was a 7.5 win program. Phil Knight arrived, turned it into a 9.5 win program. Chip Kelly arrived on top of that branding and made it a 12 win program. Willie Taggart's going to run a pro-style offense similar to Washington or USC, but Washington and USC will have better players. So he'll be a nice guy. He'll come in. He can recruit. He'll create a nice offense. Oregon will have stability and a real head coach. But in the end, the only time Oregon in a state with no players has ever exploded was when you combined the great branding of Phil Knight and Nike with the revolutionary coaching of Chip Kelly. Willie Taggart's not a revolutionary coach. He's a solid football coach, pro-style offense, run downhill. They'll win a bunch of games. But every program has a set number of wins unless there are game changers. Oregon's about a 7-win program. Phil Knight makes it a 9 to 9.5 with his branding. Chip Kelly took 9.5 to about 12 with exceptional coaching. They're not going to be a 12-win program. Washington, USC run the same offense they're going to largely run with better personnel because the state of Washington's got more good players. Peterson's a world-class coach, and USC is sitting in the richest area, Denver West, in recruiting. So I think it's a good hire. It's a stable hire. It's a solid hire. They'll win a bunch of games. They'll be closer to Mike Bellotti than Chip Kelly, which is 9 to 8.5, 9.5 wins. So I'm happy for Oregon. I don't think it's a game changer. And I think Washington and USC are breathing a sigh of relief that Tom Herman and that wild offense didn't end up there because that's what scared people. So Jerry Jones is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. And Jerry Jones always been known as a player's coach. Jerry Jones, players coach. Everybody likes Jerry. Players like Jerry. Doors open with Jerry. You can always talk business with Jerry. He's helped guys out, giving them loans. Very, very nice guy, Jerry Jones. But Jerry Jones, the problem is Jerry Jones is now sounding like a friend and not a businessman. And Jerry got rich and was able to buy the Cowboys, not because he was a friend, but because he was a businessman. And Jerry made this Cowboys team good because he gave Stephen Jones, his son, more power and wasn't a friend. He was a businessman. When Jerry's lean business, he's done well. When Jerry's thought about fun and vanity and friendship, he gets in trouble. Okay, when Jerry lets his ego and personalities get involved, he's in trouble. When he got his ego and personality got involved with Jimmy Johnson, they went from great to he's out of town. When he let his ego and his personality get in the way of Parcells, Parcells left town. Jerry's best doing business. He's a businessman, and he's a great businessman. But yesterday he's talking about Tony Romo and playing Tony Romo, and listen to what Jerry Jones, business guy, said.
I want to do what gives us the best chance to have Tony contribute to a championship.
Huh? That's friendship. That's not football. That's not business. That's not business. That is, I want to somehow insert Tony Romo into our championship run. You're doing that for friendship. You're not doing that for football. Just get out of the way. Because remember, Tony Romo stood in front of a podium 4 or 5 weeks ago and conceded that the team was no longer his.
You aren't handed anything. You earn everything, every single day, over and over again. You have to prove it. That's the way that the NFL, that's the way that football works. A great example of this is Dak Prescott and what he's done. He's earned the right to be our quarterback. As hard as that is for me to say, he's earned that right. what is clear is that I was that kid once. I remember the feeling like it was yesterday. It really is an incredible time in your life.
It's like past tense. So Tony's acknowledging, it ain't my franchise. It's not my team anymore. My run's over. In fact, a lot of people came out and criticized Tony for relinquishing it so publicly. I didn't, but many did. And yet Jerry comes out yesterday. Can you imagine Bill Belichick if Garoppolo took over and they were on a winning streak and he'd played so well and Brady was behind him because he got hurt again, and Belichick saying this?
I want to do what gives us the best chance to have Tony contribute to a championship.
What? Belichick in 1,000 years wouldn't say that. Tony had his run. I love Tony. Tony got hurt. Dak came in. Dak is great. Get back to football and get back to business, because that's what Jerry Jones is unbelievable at. That's friendship talk. Nick Saban doesn't have any friends. Belichick not worried about friends. Popovich not worried about friends. Come on. Let's stay on the business stuff. You got rich, Jerry, because of business, not because you made a bunch of friends. Your Cowboys are now legitimate because you got out of the friendship business and you relinquished all the goofiness and you let Steven do the football stuff, and you have a great roster. And I love Tony, but don't look for ways to get Tony inserted into the championship run. If you're going to play Tony, play him Week 16 to showcase his talent for other teams so you can trade him. That I agree with. Don't try to insert him into the playoff run because you like him. And I really like Tony Romo. I think he's a borderline Hall of Famer. Christine with the news.
No.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
The Knicks played the Heat last night. And do you know what happened in that game?
Well,
Something I don't really
Knicks? I can guess what happened.
Okay, do you want to guess?
Did the Knicks win? I watched just some little bits.
Yeah, they
and
won
pieces.
114-103.
Yeah.
The part that I really don't want to tell you about is that Derrick Rose got hurt and he had to leave in the third quarter. It's not funny.
It's not
I feel
funny.
really bad. I feel really bad
not
for Derrick
funny.
Rose. He left in the third quarter with back spasms and did not return. He is hopeful, though, that he can play tonight against the Cavs. The Knicks play the Cavs
It's not
tonight.
funny.
It's not funny.
No.
But the interesting thing, though, is at the same time, B.J. Armstrong, which, by the way, did you know that B.J. Armstrong is Derrick Rose's agent? Who knew? B.J. Armstrong. I loved him when he played for the Bulls.
No.
Anyways, B.J. Armstrong is Derrick Rose's agent, and he says that he is optimistic that Derrick Rose will remain with the Knicks beyond this season. He said that he realizes that it's been a great time for him, a great place for him, and it's also a great fit. Derrick Rose staying with the Knicks for many years to come.
Okay. All right. Great.
I'm going to see them play on Sunday, actually.
You know what?
The Knicks are in town.
You know what? The Knicks have been better than I thought. The Lakers have been better than I thought, and that's good for the league. Minnesota's been worse than I thought. Boston and the Indiana Pacers have been worse than I thought.
Yes.
But if the Knicks and the Lakers are better than we predicted, that's a really good thing for the NBA.
It is. I think, though, that the Lakers have a chance to get better in the next few years, while the Knicks are going to get worse.
And be expensive.
Exactly. And finally, Giannis Antetokounmpo, or the Greek Freak, and Russell Westbrook have been named the Players of the Week in the Eastern and Western Conference.
Yeah.
Not LeBron James, not
Again,
Clay.
This kind of stuff matters to guys that don't win titles. Player of the Week awards.
Oh, please. I bet LeBron's won so many Players
Seriously.
of the Week awards.
John, if
So
I...
you're going to say that because he won Player of the
Let me
Week,
tell you, John Goulet has
doesn't
been
care?
by my side many years in the last 10 as my guy that run the board and all that stuff.
yeah, where do you stand on this whole thing?
No, let me ask Goulet. If I said to you, Goulet, the show's ratings were good momentum, or you were Fox's Employee of the Week,
Oh, come on.
what would matter to you?
Ratings.
Oh,
I don't
that's not the
care.
same. And of course he's going to say that. He can't tell you that he wants to be Employee
Ratings
of the
are the
Week.
equivalent of titles in sports.
Do you know what Russell Westbrook was talking about last night? I hear you. I just am not acknowledging that.
God, you're ridiculous. Like, you're just
No,
ridiculous.
do you know what he said last night?
What?
Because he was being asked, like some people will say that you care about your stats. And he said, bottom line is I only care about wins. Isn't it possible that we're just seeing Russell Westbrook really become who he always was supposed to be? I mean, Kevin Durant, they were both holding each other back, and now they're both free to be the players that they can be. Russell Westbrook can dominate now, and he has to get triple-doubles in order for his team to win, doesn't he? Their win percentage is so much higher when he has a triple-double.
Yeah, this is what Russell wanted.
What?
To take all the shots.
They're winning, and he's assisting rebounding. Like, can we even talk about the fact that Russell Westbrook, he's not that big of a guy, is getting that many rebounds?
This is exactly what he wanted.
To win?
They have no chance to win a title. Kevin Durant
I bet you
wanted to win titles. Russell Westbrook wanted to win scoring titles. This is what Russell wanted, to be the big star in the small town, and everybody idolize him. And he's getting he's getting the suckers in the media. He's reeling them all in.
No.
I'm going to watch the Warriors tonight. Great team.
Yeah, they are a great team.
Love teams.
Unfortunately, Russell Westbrook doesn't have a great team around him, he has to carry them on his back.
He did.
You know what LeBron called him?
Don't even care.
An Energizer Bunny. Said the guy never gets tired.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
When shopping for car insurance, consider Geico, saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. Geico.com. All right, we've got a new thing on the show today. Let's bring in Eric Mangini, former Browns Jets head coach. Now, as he comes in, you're going to see this monitor. And in a couple of minutes, we're going to get really smart because we're going to do something called Why It Works. And it's a revolutionary new tool and application that you're going to teach us some stuff about football, because I always thought with all your coaching acumen that you could elevate all of our brains. And, I mean, mine's almost as big as it can get, but there's still a little room in the parking garage for more brain cells.
Especially with that hairdo. It's gotten bigger. It's really big today.
It really is. Well, first thing, I started the show saying, listen, the media does this. The Rio games are going to be a disaster. Y2K, bird flu, Trump stock market crashes. Yep. There's a lot of fear stuff. The Thursday night games, the passer ratings are higher, the completions are higher, the penalties are lower. And I would argue you're always playing divisional games. So you kind of know the personnel. It's why the Jets always seem to play the Patriots closer than the personnel and the coaching. I think we're overstating how horrible these Thursday games are.
Look, Thursday night games, they are difficult.
They're tougher.
They're difficult on the players. They're difficult on the coaches. But you know when they are on the schedule. So you can do some preparation during training camp. You can do some preparation after the schedule comes out to get ready for that game. A little bit more work than maybe you do for a normal game during the course of the season to get ahead. And to me, being able to play a divisional game, and I've heard the argument that shouldn't be the case, those important games, that's actually an edge because you know the players that you're playing against.
You know the personnel.
You know the personnel. It's a huge advantage. When you play someone on Thursday night that you haven't faced before, you really don't have enough time to be as thorough as you want to be. At least with the divisional games, you're starting from such a higher point that those games can be very competitive. And if you played the team once already during the season, you spend more time after that game chronicling things we did well, things we did poorly, getting the notes, getting things in place for the Thursday night game. Now, the great thing about Thursday night games is it's like a mini bye after that. So you've got a real edge after that going into the next week. You
can sell your team on, fellas, play your arse off, you get a vacation. Like, you can energize your team all week saying you get a stretch. You get like a bye week afterwards.
Yeah, it's huge. That time off after a Thursday night game is one of the greatest things that you have going because you can exhale. You get to watch all the other games on Sunday.
So it gives you almost a second bye week.
Yeah, it really does. And as difficult as it is to prepare for that, we're getting, the league's getting better at it. There's more understanding of what you have to do to get ready.
Okay, so Jerry on Romo said something that just made me laugh. You'd never hear like a Belichick say it. He said, I'm going to try to figure out ways to include Tony Romo in our victory. And I thought to myself, good God, just stop with the silliness. This is about, once you get to week 12 and you lead a division, owners should just not be allowed to talk. Like, should be a rule, just stop talking. Like, I understand preseason or the Monday night game, and the weather's good, you got the sunglasses on, everybody can see the owner. Like, week 12, stop talking. If you ran the Cowboys now, how would you view Romo? Now, I want you to consider everything, Eric. I want you to consider his contract, his health, Dak, your record, division lead. As if you were coaching, How would Romo enter your thoughts? How would you see him?
Okay, well, first of all, on the owner front, someone told me a long time ago when I got my head coaching job, if I didn't like what the owner did, then to go buy my own team. And I was a little bit more colorful the way he said it. So Jerry can say whatever he wants. And I don't think that people are looking at Jerry's quote fairly. It looks like and you might be guilty of this too, you're only taking a little bit of a snapshot. What he said is he wants to get Romo as ready as possible to contribute to a championship, which what I'm sure he's talking about is, okay, they get the first round bye. Let's assume they get the first round bye. What do you do with Romo at that point? Do you play him in some of these games to get him some live reps? How do they want to proceed to get him in a position where if he has to play, he's as prepared as he possibly can without affecting Dak? I think that's important. In terms of Tony's long-term plan, nobody cares about that. At this point, nobody's thinking about that. They're thinking about what can we do to win the Super Bowl this year. That's the only thing that matters. They'll handle everything else as soon as that last game is played. But at this point, coaches, players, front office, everything has to be focused on what's ahead. Next year will come, and it'll come quickly. You're not spending a lot of time on that.
Okay, so this revolutionary new game is called Why It Works. So first of all, I want you to explain it before you stand up and explain what this is.
Well, what we're going to do today is you've been killing Green Bay throughout the course of the season, right?
I have been critically aware of their flaws.
And you've been killing Aaron Rodgers throughout the course of the season. I think that's fair too, right?
I think I've been reasonably critical of Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, now granted the guy hasn't had much of a running game, so everybody prepares to stop the passing game. Everybody prepares to stop Aaron Rodgers. His numbers and his performance really haven't been that far off from what he's been. He just set the bar so high in the past that any sort of dip, regardless of circumstance, because nobody wants to talk about anything that's happened around the guy, then they start, you start killing him. So what I want to do is just pull some plays. I could have pulled as many as you wanted, okay, but to show you the way that he's playing this year, the problems that he creates for defenses, and why he works as much as why it works in the context of this season.
And by the way, you were a defensive coordinator with the Patriots. You were the Niners defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. So every coach has a side. Even though you've been offensive consultant for the Niners, you're a defensive guy first.
Yep.
You created great offensive lines in New York. That's kind of one of your things. But you're a defensive-minded guy. So do you want to stand up and do this, or do you want to sit and do this?
Yeah, no, I'll stand up and do it.
Okay.
And when you say defensive-minded guy, I think that also helps me appreciate great offensive players even more. As much as I appreciate great defensive players.
It does feel like this shtick you're doing, you've already decided I'm unreasonable.
Okay, first of all, it's not shtick. So let's just look at let's look at this play. So you got man-to-man coverage across the board. Okay, in here, these three linebackers have the two backs man-to-man based on how they release. The safety up top, he's got the middle of the field. What Green Bay is going to do is run a play-action pass. They've got a curl up here to Jordy Nelson. They're going to bring the fullback out to the flat. And down here, we've got a route conversion. So here's the play-action component of it. So Aaron's not looking down the field. He's not gotten to his read. They're trying to sell the run. Now he's going to come. He's going to spend time to see whether or not Jordy's open. So there's his first read. And we talk about quarterbacks' ability to be a full-field quarterback. He comes back. He checks the tight end momentarily. Now he comes back to the other side of the field. So this is a full-field read. He sees that he's got the receiver on top of the cornerback. But look at his eyes. See how long he's spending on Jordy? Briefly checks the tight end. His ability to come across the field and look at the ball placement. It's about 6 to 8 inches away from the defensive back. It's a 50-yard completion off of play action. So that's one component of what he does. Okay? Here's the other thing he does really well. Man-to-man defense across the board. A lot of teams play this against Green Bay because they need tight coverage. Mm-hmm. You're going to have the post safety. Okay, he's going to set up like we saw before. It's different in the red zone because it's a tighter area. Even though he has this area here, you've also got the back of the end zone, which can help you. Underneath, the linebackers got the short hole. So you've got tight coverage to take away the quick throws, and you've got those underneath defenders. Here we're going to have quick routes. A D slant here, or a dragon route, a flat with a slant, and down here a hitch with a little out route. Okay, so Rodgers is going to come back. He's going to look and see what's available, what's open, and it's got to hit right now. Okay, looks out to the receivers. It's not there. There's nothing there. This is what he does so well. Green grass to the outside. He can extend plays. We talk about quarterbacks that can extend plays. He extends them, and the receivers work with him and understand what he's thinking and the fact that the play's always alive. So you've got Randall Cobb down at the bottom. He sees the opening. Now he's going to read away from Jackson, drag across the field, stay friendly. I want you to watch the ball placement again, moving to his right outside the pocket about 6 to 8 inches away from the defensive back. Another thing, okay, that he does really well, extending plays. Here's a zone, quarter, half. Quarter's down here, half field up top. Now we're going to stop Rodgers by playing some zone and a variation, half of one and half of another. What does that mean? That means that these two defensive backs have the two receivers man-to-man, but from off coverage. Up top, it's cover two. They're going to roll up on Jordy Nelson. They're going to play half the field. Quick routes, mirrored. 2 outs, 2 hitches. If it's cover two, if this corner rolls up, Jordy Nelson now is going to convert his route, and Rodgers has to figure out where the ball goes. Corner is going to roll up. Here's the route conversion. It goes from a hitch, a 6-yard hitch, to a fade. And the window that results from that, or the throw that has to be made, is called a hole shot. It's got to be in between the safety and the corner. Does he do it? He does it all the time, okay? Here's an example of him throwing it from the top of the bleachers into a garbage can. Okay, a little bit different than Jordy Nelson, but there's a celebration. It's the same about circumference or diameter, whatever you want to say, as this situation right here. This small window about a yard away from the sideline and a yard away from the safety. So you've got press man-to-man coverage off a play action. He hits a 50-yard completion. He extends the plays against man-to-man coverage. Then you want to go ahead and play zone, and he's able to hit those hole shots. So as much as you want to kill him,
now
I think you need to. I think your shtick needs to be a little bit different in this situation because it's really not fair.
That was interesting.
Thank you.
Watching it being
Let's hear it
down
for
like
a natural performer, Eric Mangini.
That sounds a little sarcastic.
No, I thought you were very good there.
Nice.
You call him
This is what we talked
performer.
about at dinner. This is like incredible. That was very, very good. You're a natural performer. Is that how you did your meetings all week with the players?
Well, yeah, I would do that. I usually start with some stand-up and then
do juggling?
I like to I like to have props and then
mimes.
Well, mimes sometimes, but I'd like to end with like a musical number.
Okay.
Just to keep it light.
Who would you bring in?
In terms of performers?
Yeah, musical performance.
Well, a lot of times I'd work with rappers initially.
Really?
Yeah, because my freestyle is outstanding.
Yeah.
And then every now and then I'd move into more traditional performers just to keep things fresh.
Certainly. Yeah.
I'd pay a lot of money to hear you rap.
That was Eric Mangini.
You're not alone.
This is The Herd. Great day for Major League Baseball yesterday. Very happy for them. Chris Sale, the Clayton Kershaw of the American League, who has a reasonable contract, is now a member of the Boston Red Sox, and that's going to be fantastic. They gave a bunch of hot minor league prospects up for Chris Sale. I would give 1 million prospects up for a star.
A lot of Red Sox fans are not happy about this. I think they gave up too much.
Oh, God, who gives what Sully thinks? How many NBA analysts would you give up for Charles Barkley? As many as you got to give up.
Well, and pitching's huge.
Every time there's an NBA trade, whoever gets the star wins the trade. Miami got Shaq. The Lakers got 9 Caron Butlers. Who won the trade? Okay, so this is a big win for the Red Sox. Don't worry about minor league prospects. You have the best pitching staff in baseball. It's great for baseball. It'll force the Yankees to react to it. That's why it's great. But, there's a lot of attractive franchises in the National League. San Francisco, St. Louis, the Dodgers, Bryce Harper, Cubs, the Mets, the Nats. But in the American League, it really is Yankees, Red Sox. There is no third team which moves the needle for a TV network. It's Yankees, Red Sox. The Red Sox now are going to be a playoff team if they get pitching health, and the Yankees will follow suit because they're going to feel pressure to sign people, and they've got money. But this is one of these things, one of the things that when I first got into sports radio, like there were 3 or 4 topics that always got phone calls. Pete Rose, should he be in the Hall of Fame? Here's my phone number at 96.4 The Team. And then I just quit doing it. Like there's things that always are true. There's no reason arguing anymore if when you go out to get a star, it's worth giving up prospects. And it's great for you, the fan. It's great for you, the fan. Whenever a big star, Jim Harbaugh, goes to a big brand, Michigan football, you get a win. Whenever a big star, Shaq, goes to a big brand, Lakers, you get a win. Whenever a big star, Theo Epstein, goes to a big brand, Chicago Cubs, you win. Whenever a big star, The Rock, goes to a big brand, HBO, you win. Matthew McConaughey, HBO, True Detective, you win. Kevin Durant, big star, to a great brand, the new 3-ball Exciting Warriors, you win. Listen, this is a big star, Chris Sale, to a huge brand in baseball, one of the only 2 real brands in the American League, the Red Sox, you win. This is great for baseball. It's great for the sport. You want to hear something that nobody wants to talk about? There's 2 reasons why this is good. Because if you're a network and you have sports, and we have the American League playoffs next year in the World Series, what we don't want is the Royals, which thank God are getting cheap, so they won't be a player, and Toronto, because Canada kills our ratings when it comes to any major network in a sport. They don't count for our ratings. So the fact that the Red Sox and the Yankees will shrink the profile of the Blue Jays and teams like the Royals now getting cheap won't dominate is good for our business. I'm not going to lie. This is great for our business. Theo Epstein of the Cubs is great for anybody that has baseball playoff contracts. We do. ESPN doesn't have the contracts. We do. So what we want is the Red Sox and the Cubs and the Dodgers and the Giants and the Cardinals and the Yankees. We want them to be alive in October. So and by the way, baseball's as good as its postseason. It's a lot like the NBA. NBA could have a great regular season. But if the NBA's got a bad playoff season, a lot of sweeps, it's a bad season. Baseball's as good as its postseason. This year had a lot of issues. But what's everybody talking about in baseball? God, what a baseball season it was. That's got to be one of the great baseball seasons of all time. Why? Great finish. Chicago Cubs, Cleveland Indians. So this was a magnificent day for baseball, a magnificent day for sports fans. It will force the Yankees now to spend a ton of money, and Eric Mangini is right. My hair is out of control today. I love it. I don't think I've ever been happier with my hair than I am today.
You like when your hair is crazy.
I have never been happier. Today I couldn't be happier.
Because of your hair?
It's just gigantic and going everywhere. It looks fantastic. I don't care what anybody says. It looks fantastic. John, what do you think of my hair today?
It was a little out there this morning, yeah.
Okay.
You asked for it, though.
I did. Here was Brian Cashman. By the way, Brian Cashman, well, they're stealing all the good players. Here he is.
Boston's like the Golden State Warriors now. In baseball, they got their Durant and their Green and Thompson and Curry. So, yeah, it's a big one.
By the way, you know who started that? The Yankees. And I also think, we always talk about minor league prospects. And, the Red Sox gave up. I don't read Baseball America anymore, so it's, I don't know who they gave up. They'll give up a bunch of, some shortstop in Pawtucket. Who cares? But, the baseball people are like, oh, my God, we gave up prospects and we gave up. Here's the thing about prospects. How many of them become stars? I'm going to guess 50%. But stars all become stars. Like Chris Sale's a star. You're guaranteed he's going to be a star and he has a reasonable contract. Of all these hot minor league prospects, how many become Mike Trout? Just Mike Trout. How many become Bryce Harper? Just Bryce Harper. I mean, Steven Strasburg's been good, but a disappointment. Strikes a lot of guys out, but he's been a disappointment. So when you can get a star or 3 potential stars, generally, if the contract's right and the guy's at his peak, go with a star. Chris Sale's, 27 years old? No, he's a kid. He's got a reasonable contract. Of course you take that over prospects. Of course you do. I've said this for years about the NBA draft. You get past the 12th pick, there's no players. I mean, the NBA used to have 7 rounds. They cut it to 2. I mean, after about the 13th pick, now you can find me a Tony Parker. And like the Lakers, Mitch Kupchak does a very good job to find talent in the second round, late first round. I'm not saying there aren't outliers. But if you go with the history of the NBA after about the 14th, 15th pick, it dries up. It dries up. You know, all these prospects, blah, blah, blah. You do realize a Major League Baseball draft has like endless rounds. You can have like 40 rounds of drafting players. You can find prospects anywhere. You can't find stars. How many stars does baseball have? 11, 10, 12, 7? Chris Sale's a star. That's a guy you can say he could win 2 World Series games. None of those prospects are going to win you World Series games. Not yet anyway. And in Boston, they want to win now. They got the resources. They have the history. Coming up next, why teams do what they do with draft picks and quarterbacks. Wow, what an example next. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. You know, I was thinking about this morning. About every other year, you know, an NFL team, Christine Leahy joining me, an NFL team in the draft will give up a bunch of picks to get a quarterback. And there's always this like, oh, my God, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And my argument's always been, just like I talked about with minor league prospects, what's the price of not having a good quarterback in the NFL? Your staff gets fired. You got to take your girls out of their private school. You got to move your family for the 9th time. What's the price of not having good transportation? When I got out of college, my car caught on fire. I bought a car, a Mazda RX-7, on a credit card. Why? What's the price of not having legitimate and consistent transportation? You pay whatever it takes to have a ride that always gets you to work. There is no price. If you live in Phoenix, you pay whatever it takes for air conditioning. Okay, you just do. If you live in Minneapolis or Chicago, figure out a way to buy a house that has a garage connected to it so you can go from the garage into your house. Whatever it takes, a bigger mortgage, you just pay the price for it. And there's just certain things, you know, like I said before, how many average analysts would you trade for Charles Barkley? The answer is none. You just keep Charles Barkley. He's talked about more than any analyst in the country doing basketball, sometimes doing football. He's talked about during the football season. Whatever it takes, you pay Bill O'Reilly. He's been the number one guy on cable news for 25 years. I don't care if it's $40 million a year. What are you without him? There is no other next guy. And here's a prime example for all these people that say, well, watch out, don't give up too many draft picks. Here's the current AFC playoff picture. These are the teams that are in the playoffs today or in the hunt. So there are 6 teams in the playoffs and 5 in the hunt. 3 of them do not have elite quarterbacks. The Texans, the Broncos, and one of the teams in the hunt, the Bills. My prediction is none will make the playoffs. The Texans will not win that division. And the wild card's not coming from that division. It will be won by Indianapolis with Andrew Luck or Tennessee with Marcus Mariota. The Broncos, have you seen the remaining schedule? It's the toughest in the NFL. At Tennessee, New England, at Kansas City, Oakland. They're going to go 0-4 or 1-3. Denver's not making the playoffs. And the Bills are a fraud. I mean, this is Denver's remaining schedule. The toughest in the NFL in the last month. And they're on the bubble right now to make the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs. So if you eliminate those 3, Denver, Houston, and Buffalo, and I can say with some certainty, those are not playoff teams. Who would go in instead of those? Pittsburgh, Indy, or Tennessee. Big-time quarterbacks. Let's go to the NFC. 6 teams making the playoffs and 4 teams in the bubble. What do they all have in common? Legitimate quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan, Eli Manning, Jameis Winston, Kirk Cousins playing well, Bradford completing 70% of his throws, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Palmer. So when you ask, what is it? What is a quarterback worth? There's your answer. We have 21 teams still in the race. 18 have good quarterbacks. And the 3 with the most certainty I can cross out today are Houston, Denver, and Buffalo that don't. Denver's on the bubble, and their schedule is brutal. Those are 4 really, really high-end teams they're facing. At best, they're going 1-3. If they can beat Tennessee, it is a huge win for Denver this weekend. So that there is no price. There is no price for air conditioning in Phoenix. You just pay whatever it is. There is no price for Bill O'Reilly. You just pay him until he wants to stop working. That's just, you just give up as many picks as you have to give up. So people knocking on Philadelphia with Carson Wentz, first of all, he's a rookie. Second of all, that division's better than we thought. Third of all, he's got a rookie head coach. I'd give up anything I had. If I think Carson Wentz is better than Deshaun Watson, which I think he is he better than, go look at the next 3 or 4 drafts. Maybe you can get lucky and fall into a Dak Prescott, but the chances are you're not going to find the next Dak Prescott in the 4th round. You give up whatever it takes to get a quarterback. Otherwise, you're going to have to pull those adorable little girls out of private school. And you have to go to your wife again and say, honey, we're moving for the 4th time in 7 years. What's the price of that? Via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network from New York, Peter Schrager, our NFL insider. So, all right, this Cam Newton dress thing, it didn't bother me, Schrags. I don't really care. But your sources, your belief is it's not a dress code thing primarily. What do you hear and what do you think?
Yeah, everyone beat up Cam Newton for this, right? Rules are rules. You talk to any old school NFL person, they say, come on, man, you got to follow the rules. You're just like everybody else. But he's not like everybody else. He's Cam Newton. He makes $100 million. He is the face of the franchise, and last year he was the face of the league. So on Saturday night before the game, Ron Rivera told him, if you don't wear a tie to the game, I'm going to bench you for the first series. Cam Newton heard this, slept on it, and showed up on Sunday without a tie on. So everyone's killing Cam Newton. What does this tell you about his respect for Ron Rivera?
Zero.
And what does that tell you about the team and how they treat Ron Rivera? So that was my big takeaway on this. This happened Saturday night. He said, I can't play you in that first series if you don't wear a tie. Newton thought about it, considered it. And yeah, look, that's terrible on Cam Newton's part. That's great. But big picture, what's that tell you about his respect for his head coach? And then moving forward, what's the rest of the team think when Cam shows up without that tie? So it's bad for Cam, obviously. But if I'm Ron Rivera, who's a military guy, Buddy Ryan guy, right? Like discipline, where do you go from here? Because he just in front of everybody told the rest of the team, yeah, I don't care. This is how much I respect him. I'm not going to do it anyway.
By the way, has that been reported anywhere else?
It might have been. I believe Schefter had it that he knew Saturday night that the broadcast crew. So it's been out there, but I think that hasn't been really focused on. Everyone's talking about the fact that Cam Newton didn't follow the rules. Yeah, great. Like that's one thing. The fact that this was a conversation and he still didn't follow the rules. It's unbelievable. Tells me a lot more. And it's bad for Cam, but it's also bad for Rivera. Like, what does that mean about Ron Rivera and how Cam respects him as a head coach? And where do you go from here? It's going to be very interesting to see how that relationship goes over the next few weeks.
I mean, that to me is a gigantic story. Like, there is a big difference between making a mistake. But if your wife challenges you and the kids hear it, and then you next day in front of your kids and your family show disrespect for your wife, what does that tell you about the family and the relationship? Like, that to me is Ron Rivera's done. Am I overstating it?
No, not done. Now, here's the deal. Now, Colin, I'm told that other players have done this in the past, and he's disciplined them. So you're pushed his hand, and he had to react. Now, the issue, it would have been the first series, not just the first play, but it could not have gone worse for Rivera because the very first play, they throw an interception, and once you throw an interception in that building, and it's just a snowball, it's gone. Like, the game's over. So basically, you sacrifice a game on this point, and is that the hill you want to die on, right? Like, it almost felt like, all right, this is Cam Newton. Do we maybe bend for him? Because this game was over immediately after Tolbert drops that pass and it's intercepted, and now you have to deal with the wreckage of that. Well, what do we sacrifice? NBC didn't get told, didn't get a heads up, so NBC pays $1 billion to get an NFL partnership deal, and they don't tell Michelle Tafoya that the first play of the game, it's going to be Derek Anderson. So you've got Collinsworth speculating that what was going on with Cam. It was a mess from the start. It was handled wrong from top to bottom. And to me, my big takeaway is Cam really told Rivera, like, I'm sorry, buddy, like, I just can't wear a tie.
The Rams situation, I threw this out yesterday, is Stan Kroenke giving, or maybe I'm reading too much, is he giving Jeff Fisher an extension? Basically saying, when we move into the new stadium in 2 years, I'm going to get the biggest coach available, college or pro, maybe Jim Harbaugh. And the message I am going to send before I do that is, I will give you extra years. I am not impatient. I am not Cleveland. that Kroenke is sending a business message that when he opens his stadium in Los Angeles, don't worry about me being a goofy, crazy owner. I may move my franchise. You'll get 5 years because I just gave Jeff Fisher an extension. He hasn't won in ages. That's my takeaway on why Kroenke would give Fisher an extension. It was a weird week. What do you read into it?
Such a weird week because the news wasn't announced from a team press release, or it didn't come out in an announcement where we're putting Fisher on the podium and he's answering questions. It was leaked in a different way, and it didn't come from the team. So, yeah, it happened, and he did get the extension. But if you've listened to the reports, you listen to Adam Schefter, you listen to what people are saying, he got a 2-year extension, he's going to get paid out, but he's not necessarily safe, which means what? I don't know. He's getting paid. It's a very interesting thing, and I think Fisher needs to win a couple games here. I don't think it's a lock that it's his job forever. And you're right. They got the team from obviously St. Louis to Los Angeles, and Jeff Fisher was rewarded for how smooth that transition was.
That's right, yeah.
But when you say 2-year extension, that's not guaranteed he's the coach for the next 2 years. It was a financial extension. You're going to get paid out for the next 2 years. And this did not come in the form of a team press release. It came from Sunday morning guys, Rappaport or Schefter, saying, hey, this has actually been signed, this has been a deal, and then the team confirming it. So very interesting way in which the news was decimated, and I think there's a lot to be told about the way the news was decimated. All
right, Eagles, you had the Eagles last week, and the Eagles, Carson Wentz is regressing. I'm seeing these ridiculous reports that Doug Peterson's in trouble, which rookie head coach, rookie quarterback doesn't make any sense. But let's focus on Wentz. We saw some guy in the first month, and now it's getting worse. I mean, Jared Goff, I could argue, feels a little better every week. This is bad. So what's going on in Philadelphia here?
Colin, I was in that Cincinnati game, and he hung in there. They were down 26-0. A lot of quarterbacks at that age would have put their tail between their legs and gone, but they've had injuries all over the offensive line, and his wide receivers have not done him any favors. So you've got a guy like Nelson Aguilar who's battling demons right now. They had sports psychologists working with him last week to kind of figure out why he can't catch the ball. Dorial Green-Beckham hasn't really emerged as that guy they were hoping, and Jordan Matthews is injured. So it's really just Wentz being thrown out there with a shaky offensive line and trying to hope for the best and just get through this. But I spoke with him. He said, everyone told me my rookie year I'm going to hit a roadblock. It's going to be hard. And he said, you know what? It's true. And I've just got to push through and get through this. But Doug Peterson challenged his team this week. He said he didn't think everyone gave full effort, didn't think they brought it in that Cincinnati game. There might be some, heads rolling, and I don't think it's Peterson or Wentz, but I think everyone in that Eagles locker room needs to look in the mirror and see if they're going to be back next year because they need to give a big effort in the final month of the season.
Right, Giants-Cowboys is a big game. What's the concern with Dallas right now to you?
I've got a concern with Dallas. Here's a hot take that I got that I've been getting from other people around the league that you'll actually like. So that Thanksgiving game, it felt like a big game, right? It felt like national audience. They play the Redskins, they win. Last week, they go into Minnesota, Thursday night, primetime, monster ratings. Felt like a big game. They win. Look at the next few weeks for the Cowboys right now. It's at the Giants on Sunday Night Football. The Giants haven't played a relevant football game in December since 2011. Then they're home against Tampa, who hasn't played in a playoff game since 2007, again on Sunday Night Football. And then after that, it's Detroit on Monday Night Football. So these are 3 games that might be argued the biggest games in those 3 respective franchises in the past 7 years for all 3 of those franchises. And then you've got the Eagles, which probably will be flexed to Sunday night again. That's all before we even get to the playoffs. The Cowboys have already played in some monster national games, the Steelers game, the Redskins game. These are huge for the other team. Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott are used to their seasons being over now. College players, it's done. You go to the bowl game, you have a nice buffet, you play, you put up a lot of yards, and you get ready for the draft. They still have 8 more weeks of huge games. And when you think about the Giants game, the Giants beat them week 1. They're coming in, they think they can beat them. The Buccaneers are finally on national television, and they haven't played in the playoffs since Gruden was their coach. This is their biggest game in franchise history for a decade. All of these teams are treating the game against the Cowboys on national television as their Super Bowl. The Cowboys have a quarterback and a running back who haven't played past Thanksgiving. So this should be very interesting to see how they finish out the season. And Colin, my last thing, week 17, you might want to think bench Dak, let him some rest, let him go. You can't do that because we've seen this. Tony Romo comes in there and throws 8 touchdown passes like Matt Flynn did. Suddenly you're in the playoff game. You're playing Green Bay. You're down 10-0. You know those fans want to see Romo, see what he can do. So I think you got to ride Dak and Zeke the whole way through. And every one of these games for the opponent is a Super Bowl, which is a lot to take for the Cowboys as we head forward.
Peter Schrager, Unbelievable information via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network. Thanks, Riggs.
You're the man, Colin.
That was good stuff. How come we don't get my sound effect from the network on the way out? How come we always... Yeah, I think, literally, it's not like the network, the Global Satellite Cowherd Network dies or something. Like, yeah, does it need a recharging? Do I have to plug it in?
It
It's a
sounds
network.
like it.
Seriously, it's always like a big deal, and then we leave, and there's just nothing. It should be big in and big out. It's a huge global satellite network. There's a lot of personnel on that thing. Coming up next, Chris Broussard's around the corner. I have I'm not going to say it's a theory, but I believe something to be true. The Warriors are in L.A. tonight, and I'm going to throw it to Broussard and see what he thinks. We talked about this morning, and I saw some eye rolls from my young staff that doesn't understand how the world works. I've been told for years that Cam Newton is incredibly needy to deal with, but this story is a much bigger story than anybody's talking about. There's a big difference if I didn't wear a button on my lapel because I forgot, and my boss told me to wear it, or I would be fired, and I didn't wear it. Like Cam Newton being told, like you either get it in life or you don't. If you don't understand how big this story is, don't bother calling radio shows. You're a don't get it guy. When your boss says, do something or you're going to be suspended, and knowing that you show up and don't do it, that's insubordination. You can be fired for doing that at multiple jobs. There's another thing, forgetting to wear a tie. That's why I never made a big deal out of Cam not wearing a tie. I'm like, forgot, didn't care. Now he literally the night before he was told, wear it, and he's like, no. This is what I've heard about Cam Newton for years. He's needy. Mike Shula's been on that staff for years. He's a babysitter. That you've got to deal with all the stuff we love about Dak Prescott. He's a grown-up. That we love about Russell Wilson. He's a grown-up. Andrew Luck, he's a grown-up. Somebody told me this yesterday that's been in the NFL for 20 years. And I was texting him. He said, Andrew Luck, he goes, Cam Newton's an average quarterback who had a great year. Andrew Luck is a great quarterback who once had a lacerated kidney. He goes, every GM in the league would take Andrew Luck. Cam Newton's an average quarterback who had a great year. Andrew Luck's a great quarterback who once had a lacerated kidney. There's a big difference. There's a lot of guys that can have a good radio segment. I need consistency. Can you do it every day? That's what I'm looking to hire. Not people who have a great segment. 5 years. Can you be good? Now, you may get laryngitis and be out for a couple months and be awful. But you had laryngitis. There's an excuse there. You had a lacerated kidney. But what are you for 5 years? What are you 4.5 of it? That's what you are. You're not the exception. You're not the aberration. You are a collection of your body of work. That's what we all are. Derrick Rose had an MVP season. What he is a poor shooting, often hurt point guard. That's what he is. He's not an MVP. He had an exceptional year. What he is brittle, inconsistent, small, 43% shooter. That's what he is. Now, LeBron James, a great player who had a really bad series against the Mavericks. But what he is a great player who had a bad series. There's a big difference. You know, I was seeing this yesterday. It's like who we lump into good, bad, and all that. Like Todd Bowles yesterday said that Ryan Fitzpatrick was not going to play the last month. He was going to play Bryce Petty, and he didn't communicate it. And I like Todd Bowles, right? But you know the funny thing about the New York Jets? The Jets think they're really close to the New England Patriots. But what the New York Jets are, they're much closer to the Cleveland Browns than they want to admit. Like the first thing you need to do in life is like have self-awareness, what you are, what you do well, what you don't do well. In the last 11 years, the Jets have had 11 different guys play quarterback. That's not the Patriots. That's the Cleveland Browns. Since 2000, this is a 16-year period. Since 2000, the three worst NFL passer ratings are Cleveland, Chicago, and the Jets. Like the Jets see themselves as right on the Patriots' tail. They are closer to the Cleveland Browns. Todd Bowles isn't even communicating with the quarterbacks which one's going to start in the last month. Holy mother of confusion. Do you know the winningest quarterback in the last 11 years for the Jets, and it's not even close record-wise, is Mark Sanchez? Go look at the records. It's not close. So I'm looking at that Jet story, and they really have no sense of even what they are. Like, they have no idea. They really think they're on. Rex Ryan, we're right on the Patriots' heels. The Jets are becoming the Cleveland Browns. They're going to fire another coach. Going to look for another GM. Going to look for another quarterback. They got 4 on their roster. None can play. And now Bryce Petty was going to play the last month, and you didn't tell Ryan Fitzpatrick? You'd think those are the only 2 guys in the locker room you would tell. Apparently he didn't tell those 2 guys. I mean, what a mess. Skip the cold weather, get a mattress, a Casper mattress, and hibernate till spring. A Casper mattress, try it at home, 100 nights risk-free. Go to Casper.com, use the code HERD. Here's Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Christian McCaffrey just announced on Twitter that he will enter the NFL draft. He tweeted, "After 3 incredible years at Stanford, I've decided to enter the 2017 NFL draft. # blessed by the best." You think he'll be a first-round pick?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I haven't looked at the mock boards. I wouldn't make him my first pick, but I think, again, what is he? He's a more talented Julian Edelman. He can return. I mean, he's a really good player. He's an NFL player. I don't know. He's got a little Reggie Bush. Yeah, no, I mean that Reggie Bush is a good prototype. He's going to be able to return kicks, punts, durable.
Doesn't he seem like the guy that'll fall because people don't know what to do with him, and he'll end up on like a really good team?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Use him as a weapon.
Yeah, no, he will fall. It's almost like nobody wants to draft a tight end. And this draft has 3 unbelievable tight ends. There's this kid playing for Michigan named Jake Butt. And Jake Butt won't go as one of the first 8 picks because nobody wants to take everybody's petrified to take a tight end. He'll end up falling to New England, and they'll get him to take Gronk's place.
No.
I think Christian McCaffrey could end up falling to late first round, and he'll go to like a Kansas City with Andy Reid, and he'll be with that Tyreek Hill guy they have. Like next year, you'll be like, oh my God, how'd they get Christian McCaffrey? They had the 25th pick. That's a great point. It's exactly what will happen with him. He's going to be a nice NFL player.
Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. Especially with Dak, we've said he's staying away from the parties, not going to the concerts, doing the right thing. And then look what TMZ caught happening in Dallas.
Oh. Yeah.
That is popping bottles, spraying champagne. There was cash flying around there.
That doesn't bother me in the least.
Me either.
Listen, if you think about preseason, they're like 25 weeks in, and 2 young guys go out, knock down some tequila shots with young people at a club. Who gives a rip? It could have, for the record, they may have had, just the way the schedule works. Like in the NFL, you don't go Monday and Tuesday, or I think Wednesday is the first day back.
Yeah, I think they were off.
Also, they played on a Thursday, so they had extra time off.
Yeah, who cares? I don't care if my guys go to clubs.
I think it's completely fine.
Now, playoffs, and that's a Saturday night for a Sunday game. We got an issue. But
you would be shocked how many guys, some of them even playing in the Super Bowl, have parties that week.
Again, that week I'm okay. When you're 24 years old.
Super Bowl week.
Yeah, I don't care.
Really?
If a Tuesday night you go out and have some beers with a buddy on Super Bowl week, what do I care? Game Sunday. You're 24, man. At 24 years old, you can drink, get up at 6 a.m. and play basketball and drop 40. At my age, like I told you, if I have 2 yogurts out for a week.
Really?
I don't even care. 24-year-old guys can drink and party and have 3.
Have you ever popped a bottle of champagne and then gone like that with it?
That's not really my thing, no.
You're right. That would be hysterical to see you do it, though. Maybe one time. An 89-year-old grandmother apparently really, really wanted to meet Tim Tebow, and Tim Tebow has now made her dreams come true. It's kind of cute.
Oh my God! You're kidding!
I'm not.
Oh my God! You're kidding me!
Was this worth it?
I can't believe? Can I kiss you? I love you. I love your mama. I love your daddy. I love Robbie. And I love all your family.
Thank you so much.
Prayed for you for years.
Thank you.
My Lord.
Oh, that's sweet.
It's really sweet, and I don't want to be mean here, but you can pray for a lot of things, and she's praying to meet Tim Tebow.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
I just find that a little strange.
Tim Tebow was an American phenomenon for about 2 years.
Right.
I can remember being
How many years ago, though?
Well, I mean, he still can. I mean, listen. How many years ago? I mean, how many years ago do half these musicians have hits, and people are still?
We love them.
I mean, it's amazing to me. You'll go. I'll drive by a casino. Like if I drive to Palm Springs and they'll have one of those casinos out there, and they'll be like headlining at the casino, and I'm like, he's still alive, and he packs the place. So Tim Tebow's only been out of the national consciousness for about 2 years.
Well, I'm really happy for her. She seemed very happy to meet Tim
That was
Tebow.
adorable.
It was very cute. And finally, I told you earlier, Giannis Antetokounmpo is the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, and now he's getting some help from Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett visited Bucks practice to help him out. I was devastated when Kevin Garnett retired because I feel like he's one of the last guys of that era left playing. But I kind of like post-career Kevin Garnett just as much. He's doing his TV work. He's going to hang out with these guys.
Well, he's too
I
smart.
Like it.
He's too smart of a guy. You know,
But
the late Flip Saunders told me something one time.
They're tight, those two.
And I told him, I said, okay, you've been coaching all these years. I said, who is the smartest and the dumbest player you've ever had? You would not have believed his answer on one of them, but I'm not going to give you the other one. But he said, Kevin Garnett was not only the smartest player, but he could have midway through his career coached.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. It's just he didn't really have the personality all the time.
Well, he had to be he had to be a killer when he was a player.
He was, and he just always seemed very intense.
To me, I always thought he was a guy that would. It's like Kobe. Kobe's too smart to golf.
Right.
Like smart guys that retire aren't going to golf. They're going to want to be intellectually challenged. Kobe's too competitive and smart to golf. You can golf occasionally, but he's not a 5-time-a-week in Boca going out with the clubs. Kobe's got too much stuff going on upstairs.
Kevin Garnett, I could see being one of those guys that just chills on the beach and just reads a book or something.
No, not at all.
I'm very surprised by it, but I really, really like it.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line
The Herd
News.
brought to you by TrueCar. Save time and money. Download their app. See what others paid for it. Guaranteed savings up to $3,000 off MSRP. Save time and money. Download the TrueCar app today. Let's bring in Chris Broussard, who's got his own Fox Sports radio show Saturday 5 to 8 Pacific. So I floated something today with my staff, and they just looked at me like I was an alien. Now, you've heard of the Illuminati.
Yes.
For young,
I'm big into the Illuminati.
Are you really?
So explain.
But I've heard of it.
Explain what the Illuminati is to young people listening.
Oh,
it's a series of powerful men.
Conspiracy theories about this group of powerful people in Hollywood and throughout the world that run everything, right? That's pretty much it.
They dictate policy. They dictate everything shy of interest rates, or maybe they do. That there's this powerful group of 20, 30 people. George Soros has always been talked about. There's people in Hollywood. I've always had a theory. I'm going to introduce you to what I call the NBA Illuminati. Okay, so I said this to my staff.
I can't wait to see this.
Okay. That the NBA has always been controlled by about 8 people. The commissioner, a power broker, used to be Jerry Colangelo, now it's Wild. What's the World Wide West?
Oh, World Wide West.
Okay. The 2 top agents, one of them Steve Bartlestein.
You mean Mark
Bartlestein. So right now it would be Adam Silver, World Wide West, the 2 top agents, the CEO of Nike, and Kevin Plank, the CEO of Under Armour, and the 4 players. Now, they're not necessarily the 4 best players, but they're the 4 global players. LeBron, D. Wade. They have influence among other players. Chris Paul, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Dwayne Wade. They're not the best players. James Harden's better than some. Westbrook's better. They're not shifting policy. And I've always believed this to be true, that the head of Nike, the Adidases, the commissioner, It is unspoken. They don't need to meet. There's not constant texting. But between Worldwide Wes, LeBron, his people, the commissioner, there's an understanding of where the league should go. And I believe, this is why we got into this discussion this morning, Chris Broussard. You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay. I'm not feeling this. But go ahead.
Here's my theory. So as everybody talks about Westbrook, that LeBron and the league leaders look at this and think dynamic and fun. He's not part of it. Iverson was never part of it. There are great players in this league that will never dictate the league, and that Westbrook is becoming Iverson. A fireworks show. We're in awe of it. But the agents will not direct Blake Griffin to him. They will not direct power to him. Am I out of my gourd? I think this is remarkable.
Absolutely, positively out of your mind. You know what this is becoming? You and Westbrook. This is the equivalent of the Skip Bayless, LeBron, James feud, if you will.
I don't have a feud.
You are killing Westbrook.
Yes.
Now, Westbrook, look, there's no Illuminati. There's no NBA Illuminati. All right? What it is, LeBron James is the most powerful NBA player ever, including Michael Jordan. Because right now, LeBron is a business mogul. And he is impacting things, and other players are seeing, he has wielded power that we've never seen a player wield.
Agree.
Like when he left Cleveland, people were looking at, he just wants to go to Miami and win. He was looking at it like, if the owner traded me or someone else, nobody would blink an eye. Why can he decide to pick a team, but I can't decide to pick a team?
That's why I defended him. Totally agree.
And look at what happened. I don't think Carmelo Anthony necessarily leaves Denver if LeBron hadn't done what he did.
It changed the way the world works.
And most guys, it didn't work out for. Dwight Howard.
Sounds a little like NBA Illuminati.
But it's just him. It's just him. Like, he was taught growing up by his youth coach, who later became one of his high school coaches, Drew Joyce. He was taught, don't let the game of basketball use you. You use the game of basketball.
Who was taught that?
LeBron.
I like that.
Yeah, and you look at his career. That is exactly what he's done. He owns Manchester United. He's got, Spring Hill Entertainment with Maverick Carter. He's, I think he's going to end up owning the Cleveland Cavaliers when he's done playing. He's got all types of businesses, and he used basketball to get those. The credit to him is that he did it without sacrificing his game. And other players, Westbrook included, they just look at, I'm a basketball player.
That's my point. Yeah. That's what I keep telling Christine. Is Westbrook, and it's not that.
But I think that's how most of them look at it. I think Jordan looked at it that way.
Well, I think
he had great people around him that obviously he was so great, and he got all these deals.
I think LeBron looks at Westbrook, and inside knows, come on, he's not changing policy. I'm changing the world. He's changing the scoreboard.
LeBron is thinking like
yeah,
that?
I think LeBron.
No. LeBron's probably thinking right now about what he's having for lunch and who he's going to play later
I think
today.
LeBron thinks about big social global issues all the time. That's what I think.
He does, and that's unique about him. But I think Westbrook is more like the typical player, even the typical superstar player. And look, Westbrook's brand is not suffering at all. He has a deal with Barney's. What's his commercial? Is it Mountain Dew that he's always in those crazy green commercials and all? He's got plenty. Subway, I think he's got plenty of endorsement deals. He's bigger than most players in that group of four that you mentioned.
Yeah.
He's bigger than all of them except LeBron.
So you really think it's like LeBron and Skip, and I am that to Westbrook?
It's becoming that.
It's becoming that. 2 weeks? He's been on that for 12 years.
I'm predicting it. I'm calling it out. That's all.
I battle him every day on Westbrook.
And now you're creating conspiracies.
Yeah. The only way you could win the argument,
stuff.
was the Illuminati.
All right, stick around. Back in a second. The Herd. I just saw something that means a lot to me and maybe nobody else, but the greatest broadcaster, in my opinion, in the history of radio that nobody knows about outside of the Bay Area is named Bill King. Bill King was as good as Al Michaels on baseball, was as good as Chick Hearn on basketball, and was as good as anybody who's ever done it in football. He passed away a few years ago. He just won the Ford C. Frick Award posthumously. Goes into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Everybody thinks their local announcer is great. As a kid who grew up idolizing radio people like Larry King, Bill King is the greatest radio play-by-play guy ever in the history of our business. Now, Vin Scully may be the best baseball guy, Jack Buck, and there's been great Marv Albert radio. Nobody ever did the big three better than Bill King. And I'm a kid who heard him growing up, and I heard him on AM radio. There's never been a Bill King, and there never will be a Bill King. He is the greatest radio announcer. He's LeBron. He could score, he can rebound, he can pass, he can defend, and he's good with business. He was a wild, crazy, loony character. You should YouTube him. That great for baseball for putting him in the Hall of Fame. Chris Broussard.
Sounds like he might be like Westbrook.
Oh, God.
Everything you mentioned, everything you score, rebound, assist, good with business. Because, like I said, Westbrook is very intelligent, and he's got great endorsements.
Yesterday he was saying he loves Andrew Luck because he's consistent and is into the right things with charity, which basically screams Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, Russell is very active in Oklahoma City and L.A. with charity. I just got a text from somebody in OKC.
By the way, he's also very active in the turnover community.
That's the only argument you have.
I'm going to give you 3 players in the top 5 all-time turnovers. All-time leader is who? Leads more turnovers than any player in NBA history.
Who?
John Stockton.
Yeah, I never liked him.
Now, who has the highest per game average for turnovers? Turnovers per game average. Because Stockton played like 19 years.
Let me guess. Magic Johnson.
Exactly. So Jason Kidd's also in the top 5.
Yep.
Like, when you make things happen, you're going to turn it over at times. But his assist to turnover ratio isn't bad.
You don't think that I think Westbrook stinks. You know that
no,
I know.
I know that, but you think it's.
I think he's got a James Harden quality that I've seen this over and over. 6'3" guys who are unbelievable, and wing players are like, dude, he's great. I'm not playing with him.
Well, I was talking to a coach about this yesterday, who is also a former player. He said, you're going to have to build around Westbrook like you built around Allen Iverson. I agree with your Allen Iverson analogy. I think he's better than Iverson, both at their heights.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to put spot-up shooters, rebounders, defenders around him who are fine with him taking 22, 24 shots a game and basically creating everything offensively. Yeah. And if you do that, you probably won't win a championship, but you can be a very good team.
So, you got some insight. Somebody text you during the show.
Listen, yes.
From Oklahoma City.
Not a fan of yours.
Who? Was it a big shot?
If there was an OKC Illuminati, he would be in it. He would be in it. He would be in it.
He's part of that crew.
Okay, that's funny. All right, so Clay's got 60 and Kerr pulls him. You had because my takeaway is I thought the culture of Golden State now is we don't play for numbers. And I thought to stay on brand and to stay on their culture, to send a signal, it's like, hey, guys, we're the new basketball. Yeah. So staying on brand, Kerr's like, close game you're in, blowout you're out. You had an interesting theory about what you do as a coach when a guy's got 60 going into the fourth.
Well, because I texted with several coaches yesterday about this. Most of them said you should take him out. Kerr did the right thing.
Most coaches did.
Yes. They said it's disrespectful to the opponent. Some people use basketball etiquette. I know yesterday you said this isn't elementary school.
It is basketball. You don't rub it in people's faces.
I get what you're saying because I feel like you're a pro.
Yes.
If you don't like me scoring 80, then stop me.
Yeah,
all right? Don't let me score 80. But this is the problem. If pros get offended, it could lead to a hard foul. It could lead to a dirty play. And next thing you know, Klay Thompson's injured. So it's not worth it. Look at all of the guys that scored 65 or more. All of the games were relatively close. When Jordan scored 69, it was overtime. Kobe had a 65-point game. It was overtime. Yeah. Toronto, 81. It was a close game. He had to bring them back to win. But one coach said this, and this is where I thought I liked this answer the best.
Is this the coach that just texted you a couple minutes ago?
This is so
not
right.
That one.
What you're going to say.
Yeah, he said it should be Clay's call.
Yes.
He said leave it up to Clay. He said you always ask the player. If he's in a zone like that and on the verge of doing something historic, you ask the player. And I thought that was right. And remember when Kobe had 62 against Dallas after 3 quarters, Phil Jackson sent Brian Shaw, his assistant, to ask Kobe, do you want to stay in and go for 70? And Kobe was like, nah, I'll get 70 some other time. That's how
that game wasn't
Kobe.
close.
It was a blowout. Exactly. They were up 34, I think, after 3.
Christine, maybe it's because I got a bunch of kids. I always believe I'm sending messages. I don't think, because I have to think about that all the time. If I do this in front of my son, I quit smoking cigars. I just thought it was a bad image for my son to see. So I just quit, okay? So my thing is, the image of this, I don't believe on the way up, you'll meet the same people on the way down. You don't rub it in people. In sports, there's a way to win. And that's not to say but I know that sometime in the NFL, I'm going to have a crappy quarterback.
Yep.
So don't humiliate. I think that'd be humiliating an opponent.
Yeah, but is it really rubbing it in their face, or is it one guy letting him he's hot, let him get his 80?
It's kind of rubbing.
I tend to agree with you, Colin, in that for the Warriors, if you go out there in the fourth quarter, you're up 30-something, and you got Clay just going for 80 and everybody's feeding him, you're getting away from what you are as a team. Like you said earlier.
Exactly.
Like the habits you want to develop, sharing the basketball, hitting the open man, giving up a good shot for a great shot. All that's out the window.
Chris Broussard, we're back. Last hour, it's the Herd. This is the Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and for the last hour, Fox Sports Go. In 15 minutes, stick around. Former NFL scout, now a broadcaster, who knows Derek Carr inside and out. Derek Carr and the Raiders are playing Kansas City tomorrow in a fantastic Thursday night game. And Middlekauff has done radio, TV, has been an NFL scout. He was down in Fresno when Derek Carr was a college quarterback, and we're going to kind of go inside Derek Carr. You look at all these young quarterbacks, and it sort of changes the way I said of Cam Newton, is that, like, Cam broke in with Andrew Luck, and then they were going to be the next big stars, and then Russell Wilson kind of came from nowhere, and they all had different paths. Like, Cam went junior college, Luck was a Stanford guy, Dad played in the NFL, then Russell Wilson was a third-rounder, he was too small, and just like life, everybody has a different path to their success, right? But it's funny because with all these young quarterbacks out there, Jameis Winston throws a better ball to me than Cam Newton, and I think he's going to be a star. Marcus Mariota is really, really good. Dak Prescott shocked me. Biggest whiff in my radio career. I can't believe how good he is. I can't believe how good he is. And then you have Derek Carr. And I'm not even counting Carson Wentz, who I think is going to be really good, but he's struggling now, so everybody's like, whoa. I'm not counting Paxton Lynch, Jared Goff. We haven't seen enough. But what's happened is that with all the ascension of these young guys now in their second year or third year, I look at Cam Newton differently. And it's funny, I've always thought that a coach, let's talk college football, I've always believed at a traditional power, Texas, USC, Ohio State, you give a coach to the middle of his second year. By the middle of his second year, if they're not getting better, we've got a problem. At the average program, whatever that program is, Iowa or whatever the program is, you name the program. I'm talking at 10 to 12 traditional powers. I want to see by the middle of the second year, Pete Carroll hit middle of second year at USC. You're like, okay, they've got a point of view. They play with a purpose. I'm seeing improvement. That was Charlie Strong's problem. It wasn't that he couldn't recruit, but like year 2, they beat Oklahoma. Year 3, they lost to Kansas. When it's all said and done, like, what are they? I couldn't figure them out offensively. He's a defensive coach. The defense got worse. But in the NFL, so I've always done that with coaches. Here's a timeline. With quarterbacks, similarly, I kind of believe that you got to kind of see something by the middle of the second year, right? Like if a guy's got it or he doesn't, like Andrew Luck was better than most, but he threw a lot of picks in his first year. But by the middle of his second year with Andrew Luck, you're like, oh, okay. By the middle of Russell Wilson's second year, he started doing things like other guys couldn't do. And that's what's funny about Cam Newton. By the middle of his second year, it was the same as the middle of his third year and the middle of his fourth year. He was like 58% completion, wildly inconsistent, kind of moody, better player if he won, moody player if he lost. I think that's always been my problem with Cam Newton, is that he's an average quarterback who had an exceptional year. He's the Derrick Rose of the NFL. Overstated, but did have an exceptional year. I tend to be a consistent guy. But last hour, Peter Schrager came on, and this really would bother me. So he had to sit out Cam Newton the first series of last week's game against Seattle. And it was for something I didn't think was a big deal. He didn't wear a tie. Well, he's 6'6". Carolina was on the road for 10 days. I have trouble packing for a weekend. To go on the road for 10 days, if you're 6'6", 250, you can't just walk into a Nordstrom and get stuff that fits you. If you're 6'6", 250 as a guy, I'm skinny, and it can be hard to find. I have wide feet, so it's hard to find shoes that fit. 6'6", 260 guys, nothing comes off the rack and fits you. So I figured that Cam didn't wear a tie, couldn't find a shirt, and I'm defending him. He was on the road for 10 days. Then Peter Schrager an hour ago says that's not what happened. Here's what happened.
On Saturday night before the game, Ron Rivera told him, if you don't wear a tie to the game, I'm going to bench you for the first series. Cam Newton heard this, slept on it, and showed up on Sunday without a tie on. But big picture, what's that tell you about his respect for his head coach? And then moving forward, what's the rest of the team think when Cam shows up without that tie? So it's bad for Cam, obviously, but if I'm Ron Rivera, who's a military guy, Buddy Ryan guy, right? Discipline, where do you go from here? Because he just in front of everybody told the rest of the team, yeah, I don't care. This is how much I respect him. I'm not going to do it anyway.
That's a different story. That is, everybody knew the game, you knew the game, and you decided to be in insubordination with your boss. That's different than... So I defended Cam. I'm big guy on the road, couldn't get a tie. 2, coach said, get a tie. If you don't, I can't start you. Cam shows up and says, I'm not wearing a tie, bro. That's a problem. That is a major I told you, Christine, it'd be one thing if our boss said, don't forget to wear that military pin to respect the military. And you just forgot it. You're like, oh, my God, it's on my other blouse or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or he said, here's the pin, wear this tomorrow. You wore the blouse to work and took it off to send a message to our bosses. That is insubordination. That's where I'd have no problem bosses saying, now you're disrupting the chemistry of our team. You're showing lack of respect. That's what you have to at least respect your bosses.
See, I think what you're missing here is also that it's not that he just lost his tie or couldn't get one at the local store. Look at the way that Cam Newton dresses.
Right.
He very carefully plans out what he's wearing, especially on game day. So I guarantee you he had an outfit planned for every day. And I bet you that his outfit that he had planned for that day did not include a tie. Ron Rivera found out about it and said, no, you need to wear a tie. Figure out how to make your outfit have a tie.
Right.
And yeah, Cam Newton just decided,
so
no, I like my outfit.
What did I say yesterday? The kind of guys I like. They're habit guys and they care about the right stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he's more concerned about his wardrobe.
No, that's just a thing. A lot of guys are into their wardrobe. I'm not defending him, but I think that's... I'm not knocking him for caring about his wardrobe.
Would Tom Brady figure out a way to wear a tie?
Yes, but Tom Brady also, by the way, cares about his wardrobe. Okay. Everything is planned out.
But he would figure out a way to wear a tie. He would figure out a way to make it work.
Yes.
Of course he would. So would Russell Wilson. So would Andrew Luck. So they would figure out ways to wear a tie.
But I also don't think that Bill Belichick would enforce a rule like that.
But they wouldn't do the action of insubordination. I've always heard from a very reliable source that Mike Shula is not just a coach. He's dealing with Cam a lot more issues than that. He's a different guy. You're dealing with some stuff with Cam. I think this is the end of Cam and Ron Rivera. And for the record, it may be best for both. Shula may get the job, and Cam would probably like that. Shula, Cam's coordinator, could be elevated to head coach. I think Cam may want that. He may want an offensive head coach. Because, the military guy, the coach, may not defensive guy.
Exactly.
But for Ron Rivera, frankly, he'll get another head job. It may be best for him. I think the optics of Cam are greater than the reality of Cam. At the college and high school level, you can win on talent. I mean, Cam in high school, Cam in college. You remember the SEC year? I mean, he's just running over people. I mean, there's a run, Auburn against LSU. I remember this run. Cam's, and all those LSU guys are NFL players. He's just running through people. At the NFL level, coaching matters and maturity matters. Colin Kaepernick, high school, college, he's 6'5", he's 240, and he runs a 4.4. Who's going to catch him in his conference? But the reality is the NFL is asking for more from their quarterback. And I don't think Cam can provide that. I think he provides the high school, college talent, but I think his talent is hit a wall. He's taken a lot of shots. And I think Ron Rivera is sitting there thinking, I know what I got here. I can get a job with a quarterback who listens to me.
I don't know. I think this might have exposed some of the problem all season is that the two of them really just don't mesh.
They don't mesh.
And Cam Newton was probably standing on the sidelines during that interception with a big smile on his face.
Here is Cam on Monday explaining the wardrobe, not wardrobe malfunction. That was somebody else. Here's him explaining the wardrobe.
I should have just cleared it first. And by the time everything happened, it was just, I was off guard with, minutes prior to the bus leaving, and I didn't have nothing like to change into, as well as, me and my size. It's other people on the team, a person may be thinking, well, why didn't you get nobody's shirt on the team? We've been in California for a week, and we shipped our clothes off. So that was the big no-no.
See, now I defended him when he said that, and then I found out. The other story. But that's like Dak and Zeke having a. I don't really care mostly what players wear to games and what they drink. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with players going out and partying as long as it's not the night before the Super Bowl. But if on Super Bowl week on Tuesday night, if you went out and let's say the Super Bowl's in Miami, and you played in Miami. And you went out with family and a friend, and you knocked down 7 cocktails. Even at that, I'm okay. You're 23. You'll rebound nice. Like Zeke and Dak partying in Dallas is of no consequence to me. I couldn't care less. And also, as you said, they played Thursday, so they had extra days off. I don't care what players do. And I also don't care what they wear to games. I do care that the coach says do this, and you knowingly don't do it. That's a whole different ballgame. So the Raiders play Kansas City tomorrow. And I think we talk too much about these Thursday games and how they're terrible. We looked it up this morning, and what's remarkable about these Thursday games, as much as the media crucifies these 13 games, the passer rating and the completion percentage for quarterbacks is higher in 13 games. And there are fewer penalties in these 13 games. And so the media narrative is Thursday games are bad. But what has happened when we looked it up this morning, it's hard to believe, but completion percentage, passer rating are higher on Thursday than Sunday. And the penalties for Thursday games are lower than Sunday. A lot of this is because there's less travel on Thursday games, and it's divisional rivals. Remember, if you only play one Thursday game, you can do a lot of your preparation for the team before the season starts. So this idea that all Thursday games are bad, 5 have been decided on one possession. The Raiders and the Chiefs, they know each other's personnel. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. And John Middlekauff is a former NFL scout who I lean on and a Bay Area radio TV host. John, not only do you cover the Raiders and the Niners, and both going in opposite directions are fascinating stories, you know more. You told me recently that Derek Carr, you knew him in Fresno. Was he in the region you had to scout?
Well, I was actually a graduate assistant before I worked in the NFL, and my second year there was Derek's freshman year. So my first year was during the recruiting process. Now, he was already committed by the time I worked there. But, I've listened to you this football season talk about Derek, and the thing I knew before I ever worked in the NFL, just being around a 17-year-old, 18-year-old Derek, is his personality is pretty special. There's a galvanizing element to him that he used to help us recruit. He wasn't even playing, and we would bring wide receivers, specifically wide receivers, and he would host them on recruiting visits. He would always, on game day, he was a backup his true freshman year. He wasn't even the starter, and he would always come over and warm-ups and talk to players that at the time were committed to Cal, committed to San Diego State, committed to Washington State. I mean, schools that usually guys would go to over Fresno State, and he got them to flip because he was all in. And that's to me, one of his best qualities is stuff not his physical attributes on the field, but the stuff off the field that just really comes naturally. You talk a lot about there's some frauds in the NFL. That's not Derek at all.
It is interesting. I don't remember a ton of his college career because I remember Boise State being the team Fresno State couldn't get past. How great was Derek Carr in college?
You know, I think he by no means is what we're watching these last 2 years. I think he relied on his big arm. He had Devontae Adams that's slowly but surely becoming a star for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And they really just kind of played alley-oop football. I mean, he would just throw go routes. Devontae was bigger, stronger than everyone, especially in that conference, and he would just score every time. He played with some other really good receivers, too. He was just so much physically more gifted and just better than a lot of his opponents. And I know that SC game comes up. He wasn't playing with any NFL offensive linemen, and his defense was terrible. So they were just in a lot of, 50 to 45 shootout. I mean, most of their games look like the Big 12. He's come a long way, and the coaching improved. I mean, once Pat Hill got fired, they had a new coaching staff come in. They ran the spread offense, so Derek just did what he was told. I think since he's been around NFL coaching, and, again, one of his best attributes is being receptive to coaching. He likes being coached, and it's pretty obvious. You just watch him play. He's gotten dramatically better in the last couple of years because he listens to coaching.
Yeah, John Middlekauff, former NFL scout guy I lean on. Now, they end the season at Kansas City, at San Diego, Colts, at Denver. Could I make the argument they have peaked, and it could be a bumpy last month? Yeah, I mean,
this game's big, Colin. I think you win this. You don't officially win the division, but you might as well hand out halves. I mean, the division's over. You'll have a 2-game lead. You'll split. You'll really just have to probably win one of the last 3, and you're in. You lose this, I think the Chiefs are going to win the division. And as great as this season's been, you're looking at a 5th or 6th seed, and you're going to have to go on the road. So, I don't. To me, I have no clue how this thing's going to look tomorrow. But it's kind of weird for as great as they've been, and the bar's been so low with this organization. I mean, they've been so terrible for so long, and they're 10-2. And you just say you're 10-2 in the NFL. I don't care how it looks. That's an incredible record. That you lose this game, it'll feel like they're 7-5 because they'll be at a huge disadvantage to the Chiefs of winning the division. And then I'm an Andrew Luck guy like you are. I mean, he could come into Oakland and win that game. San Diego might be the best bad team we've ever seen. And then on the road to Denver to end the season, I would imagine that'll be snowing, flurries, windy. That's not an easy place to win. So to me, the season, as crazy as it sounds, because they're 10-2, that the season is kind of in the balance tomorrow in Kansas City.
John Middlekauff, former Scout Bay Area TV radio host. I want to shift to the Niners. Chip Kelly said, I'm not going back to Oregon. I totally understand that. They hired the very capable Willie Taggart today. When you look at Chip Kelly, now Jed York situation, Trent Baalke, Chip Kelly, this has obviously been a mess. Master plan, maybe he doesn't want to be good. He wants to get Deshaun Watson. He's been in the NFL now 4 years, and he knows you can't win without a good quarterback. Even Belichick couldn't. Do you think Chip has a master plan that he doesn't? This season he's been assured he gets 2 to 3 season. He just wants to be in a top 3 or 4 team and get a quarterback. Is it possible Chip really doesn't care about this year and it's about accumulating more good picks?
No, I've been around him enough and just know people that have been around him every day. That's not the way he thinks. He's trying to win all these games. And to me, that's a little alarming. Listen, I was a big Chip Kelly fan when he first came in the league. Watched him, what he did at Oregon was incredible. I thought, and I was in the meeting, Colin, when he first showed up in Philadelphia and said, it does not matter what quarterback you give me, I will adapt my offense to him. So we thought, hell, he could coach a Tom Brady or he could coach a Colin Kaepernick. The offense will be molded around him. But he never changed his offense. And last week in Chicago, and I know it was snowing and the game didn't matter, Chip's trying to win all these games. Like, he's game planning to win. He's not worried about the draft. That's just not the way he thinks. His offense has never changed, and I talked to a buddy on the Bears. They knew what was coming. He kept running the zone read with Kaepernick, and there were multiple defenders just waiting there to tackle him. He can't coach. He doesn't do anything else. Like the Raiders, for example, they have those plays in the playbook. They also have traditional power in the playbook. They can go under center. They can go in shotgun. Chip can only go in the shotgun spread formation. That's all he has. And I think his lack of kind of progression and growth in the league has really, I'm at the point now where I just view him like he's going to end up in college. Whether Jed fires him this year or fires him next year, it's not working. Like, he's not meant for the NFL. And it was strictly because clearly you've talked to him. He's really smart. His offense hasn't adapted. And that's originally why he came into the league, because he was such a progressive offensive genius. And he just never changed. And in this league, these guys spend way too much time in the film room. The defensive coordinators get paid too much. You have to change. You have to adapt. Just like players, coaches have to too. And he never did. And I think that if it's not this year, I don't think they'll fire him this year, even though I will not crush Jed York if he fires him. I don't think Chip's going to – he doesn't work in the NFL. He's been exposed, and he's refused to change. That if it's not this year, it's next year.
And finally, John Middlekauff, former NFL scout, we know that San Francisco doesn't even lean left; it tilts strongly left.
Oh,
and
major.
So the Kaepernick situation would be intolerable, perhaps in a Tampa or a Dallas, a conservative city. But dissent is part of the nature and tapestry of San Francisco. That said, what's the takeaway today about Kaepernick in the Bay Area?
I think you could ask 50 people on the streets and you get 50 different opinions. I think he's been such a roller coaster ride with his opinions. I think most people, once they took a deep breath, understood what he was fighting for when he took the knee. Even if you're the most pro-military or pro-patriot, you understood it once you kind of heard his explanation. But then, a couple weeks ago with the Castro comments and trying to justify that Castro did good things, most people are like, Colin, if you knelt in Cuba, they would have killed you. What are you talking about? So he's kind of been a walking hypocrite on some of the stuff. And then he didn't vote. Not that his vote would have influenced America, but it was just, and some of the props in California were for, prison, like changing in the prison system, medical marijuana, things that affected the stuff that he had openly talked about that he was fighting for. And I think people really struggled with his consistency of message, and then his play so up and down. I think a lot of people are just kind of over Kaepernick, just kind of Kaepernicked out. And I think at the end of the season, it feels like about 2 years too late. But I think it's just time for the Bay Area and Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers just to all go their separate ways and just get a fresh start.
Great stuff. As always, no surprise. John Middlekauff. Love having you on, man.
Thanks, Colin. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, he didn't like Chip Kelly much. That's clear. A lot of people say that Jim Harbaugh is not built long-term for the NFL. He needs total control. I generally side with smart guys figured out. If you give me the smart guy, he'll figure out a way to evolve and grow. Like, you can change and adapt. What he's saying there is Chip's just not willing to adapt. Guys, if you're wondering whether your shirt's too long to wear untucked, I would say it probably is. Untuckit.com has solved the problem. Shirts designed to be worn untucked. Go to untuckit.com and use the code SPORTS for 15% off. They got a store in L.A. now on Melrose Avenue. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
The Chargers are reportedly talking to the LA Coliseum about moving to LA and playing there as early as next year, which means we could have the Rams and the Chargers both in LA. And the numbers are really down for the Rams. Have you seen that? The TV local ratings for the Rams. No one's even watching that. They're watching USC.
It's just so funny. The team Los Angeles loves is the Raiders. People in L.A. don't care about the Chargers, and they're lukewarm on the Rams. And nothing against the Rams, but Rams were Orange County. They played in Orange County at Angel Stadium. The Raiders played up here in L.A. County. Like the rest of the country may not know that. L.A. County's north, and then south is Orange County. Then south of that is San Diego. It's like the two of the three teams that really weren't the kind that would galvanize L.A. County are now here. And they're not, and frankly, the Rams aren't very interesting.
Yeah, they're not very good. The Eagles are on a 3-game losing streak, and they're now 5-7. And the Eagles' offensive coordinator is now saying that is starting to get to Carson Wentz.
For a while, I thought he seemed, totally unflappable. It was like there was, Now in some of the more recent losses, do you sense that this is okay? He's feeling this one. Yeah, we're all feeling it, and. I think he was that young, naive, in a good sense, but still very mature guy who came in, and it was like, nothing's going to get this guy down. But even, but it wears on you.
Is that dangerous?
I don't know if I talk about that publicly, but I think Philadelphia's media is aggressive and they ask questions and you have to answer them. Listen, Frank Reich, I don't know him, but I know people who know him and respect him a lot. Doug Peterson has a history of working with some of the smartest guys in the league. So between Peterson and Frank Reich, and I don't know them personally, but I know people who know them, they're really good quarterback coaches. Like they both played in the NFL. I could argue that no staff in the NFL has two better quarterback coaches than the Philadelphia Eagles. Frank Reich, who's very respected in the business, and Doug Peterson, who's had Holmgren and Andy Reid. So if they're struggling with Carson Wentz, I think what it illustrates is how damn hard it is to be a rookie to come into this league in a division which is way better than we thought and win. That's why I say with Jared Goff, I can't make any judgment. I mean, Jameis Winston to me is just now clicking. Middle of his second year. And Marcus Mariota, I always say, middle of your second year, are you clicking? Mariota did. Derek Carr did. Even though he wasn't winning, Derek Carr did. Jameis did. These guys are so over their skis, these young quarterbacks. We wouldn't ask a high school quarterback to go to Texas and play as a freshman and think, oh, first year he struggled. This guy's no good. It's just, some people develop more slowly. I think Carson Wentz, I told you, I think Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Paxton Lynch, I think they're all B quarterback prospects. Now, that could be B+. I thought Mariota and Winston had a chance to be A's. So I think if Carson Wentz, I think he's somewhere in between what he started with and what he is now. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I think he's going to be a really, really talented kid that is a consistent playoff quarterback. Okay. And that's going to be a good quarterback. Great. That's a very good quarterback. That's, with very few exceptions, Andrew Luck, John Elway, generally going into what you draft, that would be terrific.
Yes. The Bulls, and specifically Dwayne Wade, are saying they're trying to move on from the Rajon Rondo suspension incident. Dwayne Wade is feeling like he needs to step up as the veteran of the team and knows that Rondo is probably receiving a lot of messages about what happened when he threw a towel at the ref and kind of gotten in a verbal altercation that escalated after the game. And Dwayne Wade says the group must move forward. He's been disciplined. They've talked about it. He understands it. And we've moved on. Interestingly enough, that is exactly what Fred Hoiberg says. So Dwayne Wade is siding with Fred Hoiberg on this, which doesn't seem like great news for Rajon Rondo.
See, but you tend to you've been apologizing for Rondo forever.
I know. Well, I told you what made the difference to me was that this is a guy who is apparently a very, very smart, high basketball IQ person, and Rondo can't get along with him. That's not good.
So here's my question for you.
Okay.
Are you consistent? Like, if you were involved with somebody, would you be as forgiving with them as you are to Rondo?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. That's your consistent.
I'm very forgiving and very understanding of people's backgrounds.
Okay, that's good. So that's good.
So I'm consistent.
So am I. I'm not understanding of either.
I know. We're consistently very different on that. And finally, David Ortiz, we know he retired after last season, but when he heard the Red Sox had acquired Chris Sale, he might be changing his mind. He posted this message: "My God, my boy Sale to B-Town. You guys got me thinking." Would you be okay with a David Ortiz return?
Of course. The guy was a bull last year. What were Ortiz's?
No, here, I've got you
330.
Right, led the league in doubles, RBI, slugging percentage, and OPS, and had 38 home runs.
Of course. I think you should play until you can't. I don't know.
Oh, no. I think you should go out on top. And he already did the farewell. And I love David Ortiz. He's amazing. I wish I could see him play forever. But I feel like once you did the big retirement,
couldn't he come back in the second half, be a DH? There's nothing wrong with that. Couldn't he do that? I just don't want to go to spring training. I don't want to do all the crap. I don't want to play in cold weather. I'll come back in June.
You know what it's like? It's like when you're in a relationship and you know you want to break up with that person, but then one day they do something kind of nice and you're like, okay, cool, I'll give it another try. And then you're going to break up like a couple weeks later anyways. Just peel off the Band-Aid. And I love David Ortiz, but I don't like when people retire and then come back and retire and come back. It just takes away from the big moment of it.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line
It's a brand new
News.
season every week at DraftKings, destination for 1 week fantasy football. The code is HERD. Play free. First deposit. Your share for $1 million. See site for details. Yeah, it's hard. Like if you were, it's an interesting story with David Ortiz. Like, would you keep playing? Would you keep playing? Mm-hmm. I have talked to some guys, for instance, football players. They just get tired of the practice. Like football players, okay, they have a physical component. They're beat up. But most of them are like, I would have played the games. Drew Bledsoe's like, I just got tired of the practice. And then I've talked to baseball players. And baseball players are like, the season's too long. It's like 8 months on a plane. NBA players, similarly, they're like, it's just a beat down. But, you know, if you could, like, I would have I wonder, because obviously David Ortiz has leverage here. He was great last year. By and large, how long are you going to work in your business? Like, I'm going to work until there'll be a day, and I know exactly how this will work. I'll be driving to work, and I'll be thinking I'd rather be home. And then I'll just quit working. And that will happen and that's a long way off.
Can you give me like a heads up on
No,
that?
yeah. Like
okay.
when I drive to work now, I've got stuff motoring in my head and I'm all sired. Okay. There'll be a day 20 years from now I'll be like, my mouth hurts. I'm done talking. And I will know it. It's happened to me before in other ventures where I just check out. I'm like, I've done this in relationships. I've done it with businesses. I've done it with, like when I did that show, Sports Nation. Mm-hmm. I can remember getting ready for it one day thinking, I don't enjoy the show. I enjoyed my coworkers, but I'm like, I checked out. And I went up to my bosses and said, like, negotiate me off the show. I don't enjoy it anymore.
Does it happen pretty fast?
Oh, yeah, real quick. But radio I'll do forever. Like, this will be fun. But, like, if you're a pro athlete, if you're David Ortiz, you hate spring training. The guy doesn't like playing in that weather. So why not just say to them, listen, I'm available June 10th. And basically, this is what Vin Scully did at the end of his career. Vin Scully said, I'm not doing road games. I'll do home games at Dodger Stadium. If David Ortiz came to me and said, I will play June 15th to October 15th, I would sign him up in a second. And I would tell my team, he could be the best clutch hitter in the American League. Are you guys? I think his players would be like, yeah. I think in football, players wouldn't like you parachuting in. But I think in baseball, players understand the duration, the marathon of it. I think they'd be okay you parachuting in.
Well, I think for the Red Sox with David Ortiz specifically, that could work.
I don't know.
Don't you see what I'm
He's
saying?
He's a DH. All he has to do is go hit 4 times again. How much fun is that? What are you going to do? What are you going to do for the next 3 months? I'm going to go play at Fenway and hit. Do you have to field? No. Steal bases? Not really. Run a lot? Be in shape? Nope.
Be in shape.
I get to go hit 4 times at the greatest stadium in America, not named Wrigley Field. Well, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Okay, but you can only do that once. You can't retire again and then come back halfway through the next season if, like, the next best player
What if Ortiz
along?
said to you, okay, and you're the Red Sox GM, and I said, I will do home games.
You can't do that
Why
because
not?
of the way the rosters work.
I don't want to do any flights. I'll stay at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston.
You can't do that. You sound like a broadcaster who only wants to do the home games.
I'm going to tell you something. If you gave me David Ortiz just at Fenway, June 15th at the end of the series, I'd be like, as a general manager, I'd be like, if
they could make that happen, sure. It didn't have to take up a roster spot.
Dude, David Ortiz was, and I don't sit and watch regular season baseball games. He was the best clutch hitter in the entire American League.
He's great.
Unbelievable.
But maybe it's because you don't really like celebrations, that you don't see where I'm coming from. Like, I love that last moment when you know they're retiring. It's the last game they're ever going to play. But then if he comes back, it's like, well, that kind of took away from that whole moment.
I don't like I will never celebrate my last show.
You won't celebrate your career?
I'll call Goulet on the way home, and I'll say, I'm not going to show up ever again.
Thank you for that. I'll just
I appreciate that.
by
Thank
myself.
You. I'm glad I get the call.
No, I told you I'd give you a heads up. I'll give you like 8 hours.
Thank you.
But I will never tell my bosses a year out I'm retiring. I'll never do that. No, I'm just telling.
Can I get a year?
I will call Sam and John and Greg and say, guys, I'm not going to show up. Oh, you'll be back Thursday? No, I'm never coming back. That's what I'll do. That's exactly how I'll retire.
And then I'll just show up to work and just be here alone?
First of all, you'll be like 70, and you won't want to be on the air either. You'll be at a nursing home in Palm Springs.
Wait, if I'm 70, that makes you... No, you're retiring before I'm 70.
That makes me 98 on the air.
Hey, Westbrook's no good. Russell Westbrook never won a title.
Oregon football hired Willie Taggart today as head coach. Been a head coach twice. Seems to know what he's doing. Plays pro-style offense. Coached at Stanford for 3 years. Runs downhill. I like the idea that he's been a head coach before. Mark Helfrich had not been at that level. And he definitely has an attack. He has a game plan. I like that. As long as you have a point of view, a sense of, you have a style. I felt Helfrich was just kind of a poor man's Chip Kelly, just didn't have his own vision, didn't think he was a tremendous recruiter. Willie Taggart has a reputation as a very good recruiter. I think he has a point of view and a vision. They're going to play power football. I think USC and Washington, however, feel they caught a break. They were, I was told by a source I trust, concerned about Tom Herman. Bringing Phil Knight and Tom Herman together could be Chip Kelly 2.0 at Oregon. I think Willie Taggart will win a bunch of games and create stability. But every college football program, much like states, certain states have advantages. California just has more resources than, say, Nebraska. Louisiana has 3 of the biggest 9 ports in the country. There are certain states that have more, they have agricultural benefits, right? We know that. Certain states have oil, certain states don't. And like, compare that to college football. We know that certain programs like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, USC, they've got more resources, right? There's more good players around them. Oregon as a football program would be similar to a state like Wyoming or South Dakota. They either need a huge booster. They've got to tweak the system somehow to attract tourists, to figure out a way to keep commerce rolling. They don't have the natural resources of a USC football, of a Texas football, of a Georgia football. And just like states, some have advantages. Oregon's about an 8-win program, 7.5. And then Phil Knight came around and took 7.5 to 9.5. And then Chip Kelly came around and took that 9.5 to 11.5. I think Willie Taggart's going to be fine, but if he runs a pro-style offense, that is not revolutionary, and he's going to run the same offense largely as USC and Washington, but they have better players. Oregon's got no players in the state, 3 or 4 a year. That's the game in this whole sport. The whole sport's about how many players do you have within 50 miles of your campus that you can recruit. Alabama, a ton. Louisiana, LSU, a ton. Ohio State, a ton. Penn State, a ton. Michigan, a lot. USC, a bunch. Oregon, not so much. So when you've got, in this day and age, the Oregons, and Nebraska did it with Tom Osborne, you have to have this cultural advantage or this legendary coach to elevate you from your normal win total to an elevated win total. And I think Willie Taggart will be good. And he knows what he's doing, and I think he can recruit, and he was at Stanford, but I don't think it's going to be Chip good. I think it's going to be closer to Bellotti good, which is 8.5 to 9.5, some big pop years depending on the quarterback play. But now Chris Peterson's got it rolling at Washington, and USC's got it rolling in recruiting, and David Shaw's got it moving at Stanford, so Oregon is surrounded. And I think Gary Anderson at Oregon State's really, really good. So Oregon now is surrounded by coaches. Chris Peterson ain't leaving. Gary Anderson ain't leaving. David Shaw's not leaving. And Clay Helton's not leaving. They're not leaving. Those guys like college football, and they've been offered stuff. Like David Shaw's been offered NFL jobs. He's not leaving. So the Oregon job now is tougher than it was 5 years ago when Chip took it over and it exploded. By the way, Chris Broussard on today. This was interesting. I said, Steve Kerr pulled out Klay Thompson with 60 points, didn't let him play the fourth. It's kind of interesting what Chris Broussard, his takeaway on this.
If pros get offended, it could lead to a hard foul. It could lead to a dirty play. And next thing you know, Klay Thompson's injured. One coach said this, and this is where I thought I liked this answer the best. He said, you always ask the player. If he's in a zone like that and on the verge of doing something historic, you ask the player. And I thought that was right. And remember when Kobe had 62 against Dallas after 3 quarters, Phil Jackson sent Brian Shaw, his assistant, to ask Kobe, do you want to stay in and go for 70? And Kobe was like, nah, I'll get 70 some other time.
What's interesting about that, though, what Chris Broussard is really talking about is the NBA has always been a players' league. And I think most coaches are comfortable with that. That's why college coaches struggle in the NBA. College football coaches can work in the NFL. Pete Carroll has. Jim Harbaugh had success. A lot of these NFL guys, Jimmy Johnson coached in college because it's still really football is about the coach. College basketball is about the coach. NBA basketball is about the player. So guys like Bobby Knight, Jerry Tarkanian, there's no way they could go to the NBA and just deal with that culture. You got to be comfortable with the player runs the league. And I thought that was a very interesting answer by Broussard. Go to the player and ask him. Now, hopefully Clay's the kind of guy's like, I don't care. And I'm totally comfortable with that. Like every sport's different. NBA basketball from the 70s, it's about the player. Because the NBA is the only sport where like one player can change the culture and the wins and the losses and the net worth of your franchise. Just one guy. Even if he's surrounded by average, even LeBron was surrounded by average, he got him to a final. So I'm comfortable with that. I'm okay with that. And I thought it was a really interesting answer. Go ask Steve Kerr or go ask Klay Thompson. What do you think? And Klay dictates it. That's good. That's a little insight there. Baron Davis on our show tomorrow. He'll probably defend Westbrook, too.
Can't wait.
Surrounded.
I wonder why. So many people are right.
We'll see you tomorrow. It's The Herd.